Imagine a world where every decision you make, no matter how big or small, feels like a perfectly executed move. A place where you confidently navigate life's challenges with the ease of a seasoned strategist. Does this sound too good to be true? What if I told you that the real difference between people who seem to effortlessly succeed and those who constantly struggle lies in something far more profound than just intelligence, education, or experience? It's not about knowing more or being naturally gifted, it's about how you think. You see, your brain has the power to shape every outcome in your life, but most people aren't tapping into its full potential. They're stuck in a cycle of reactive thinking, where decisions are based on emotion, impulse, and shortcuts. These mental traps keep you from breaking free, leaving you feeling behind while others move ahead. But what if you could rewire your brain to think like a strategist, seeing opportunities, calculating risks, and anticipating every move before it happens? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unlock today. You're about to embark on a journey to completely transform your decision-making process and equip yourself with the cognitive tools that will make you a master of strategic thinking, ready to take control of your mind and your future. Let's dive in and discover how you can start thinking smarter, not harder. Chapter 1. The foundation of strategic intelligence. Most people go through life playing mental checkers, while a select few are playing chess, and the difference isn't luck. Its approach: imagine being able to navigate every challenge, not just by reacting, but by analyzing the full picture, predicting outcomes, and positioning yourself for success. That's what strategic intelligence allows you to do. It's the ability to see patterns where others see chaos, to anticipate the consequences before they unfold, and to always be 2 steps ahead. But here's where many people misunderstand strategic thinking. It's not about being innately brilliant or gifted. It's a skill like any other that can be learned and honed. It's not about smarts, it's about the way you process information, the way you approach problems, and the way you position yourself for success. At its core, strategic intelligence rests on 4 essential pillars. Let's break them down, one by one. Pillar 1. Systems thinking. Most people approach problems like isolated events. When a business hits a setback, for instance, they blame the sales team, the marketing strategy, or the product quality. But a strategic thinker, they'll zoom out and consider the bigger picture. They understand that everything is interconnected. So when a business loses customers, a strategic thinker will look at the system as a whole. The market trends, the competition, internal team dynamics, customer feedback, and even external factors like the economy. They know that a problem is rarely a one-off issue. It's often a symptom of a much larger system at play. Pillar 2. Temporal thinking. Strategic thinkers don't just focus on today's issues. They think long-term. It's like playing a game of chess where every move is calculated, not just for the immediate next turn, but for the many moves that follow. For example, Warren Buffett doesn't care much about short-term stock price fluctuations. He looks at the bigger horizon, decades of growth, and invests accordingly. This temporal perspective gives him a massive edge over those who are obsessed with the quick wins. In your life, adopting temporal thinking means understanding that some of the most critical outcomes might take years to materialize. You won't always get instant gratification, but in the end, the payoff is worth it. Pillar 3. Probabilistic thinking. Instead of focusing on black and white outcomes, strategic thinkers focus on probabilities. They don't ask, will this work? They ask, what are the chances this will work, and what are the ranges of possible outcomes? They look at risk, reward, and every possible scenario that could unfold. Take Jeff Bezos, for instance. When he launched Amazon, he didn't have a crystal ball to see it would become one of the world's largest companies, but he calculated that the internet would become a massive force, and the probability of online commerce exploding was high. So he positioned himself to seize the opportunity no matter how the future unfolded. Pillar 4. Leverage thinking. Strategic thinkers know that not all actions are equal. Some decisions have massive, disproportionate effects. They're always on the lookout for points of leverage, small changes that can create huge results. It's like finding a hidden lever that, when pulled, moves an entire wall with minimal effort. This is why strategic thinkers often seem to do less and accomplish more. They invest their time and energy in high-leverage activities. They'll spend weeks deliberating on a decision that might save months of effort later. And they'll use every piece of leverage they can find to accelerate their success. But here's the thing. Understanding these principles is just the beginning. To truly master strategic thinking, you need to reprogram your brain. Most of us are wired for survival, which means our brains are excellent at reacting to immediate threats, but not so great at long-term planning and analysis. In a world where quick thinking and emotional reactions often take the spotlight, developing strategic intelligence requires discipline. So how do you get there? How do you rewire your brain from reactive thinking to strategic thinking? It all begins with one key skill: metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts. If you're enjoying this audiobook, consider subscribing to Blue Wave Audiobook for more insightful content. Now that we've set the stage and laid the foundation for strategic intelligence, it's time to take a deeper dive into how to break free from your brain's default autopilot settings. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to overcome the mental barriers that are holding you back. Stay tuned. Chapter 2. Breaking free from mental autopilot. Have you ever found yourself going through the motions, responding to life's challenges without really thinking them through? You know the feeling when you're on autopilot, making decisions without much thought, following the same patterns, and letting your emotions guide the way. It's easy to get caught in this cycle. After all, our brains are wired for efficiency. The problem is, sometimes efficiency can be our greatest enemy. Let's face it, your brain is designed to be lazy. Now, that might sound harsh, but it's actually a feature, not a flaw. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's total energy, despite only making up 2% of your body weight. To conserve energy, it's constantly looking for shortcuts, patterns, and ways to automate processes. And this is great when you're doing routine tasks, like walking, brushing your teeth, or driving a familiar route. But when it comes to complex, high-stakes decisions, like career moves, financial investments, or relationships, autopilot thinking can leave you vulnerable. So what happens when your brain takes over and you fall into these automatic, unconscious thinking patterns? For one, you stop making decisions strategically. Instead, you react. And this reactive thinking keeps you stuck in a loop, missing opportunities, and making poor decisions. Let's look at how this mental autopilot plays out in several destructive ways. Pattern matching. Without context, your brain loves to make connections. It constantly searches for patterns, familiar situations that resemble past experiences. The problem: not every situation is as similar as it appears. When something new comes up, your brain looks for a quick solution, often pulling from past experiences without considering the unique context of the current challenge. This is pattern matching, and it's one of the sneakiest ways mental autopilot tricks us into poor decisions. Imagine this: a seasoned business leader who thrived in a stable market might struggle when market conditions change dramatically. Why? Because they keep applying the same strategies that worked before without recognizing that the landscape has shifted. It's like trying to navigate a winding road by following the same directions you used for a straight highway. Sure, it worked once, but now you're heading straight into trouble. Emotional hijacking. The hidden enemy. Now, let's talk about stress. We've all been there, under pressure, racing against time, dealing with high stakes. What happens when you're in those moments of stress or conflict? Your brain goes into survival mode. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood your system, narrowing your focus and impairing your ability to think clearly. When this happens, your brain is no longer thinking strategically. Instead, it's reacting based on emotional impulses. This is why we make some of our worst decisions when the stakes are highest. When you're feeling overwhelmed, the part of your brain that should be thinking strategically is hijacked by primitive survival mechanisms. Your ability to think through problems, analyze options, and weigh consequences is dramatically diminished. Think about it. When you're angry or anxious, do you make decisions you're proud of afterward? Chances are you're more likely to act impulsively, regret it, and feel like you're trapped in a cycle of bad choices. Learning to recognize when you're emotionally hijacked and taking steps to regain control is essential to breaking free from this autopilot pattern. Cognitive conservatism, sticking to what's familiar. Here's another twist. Even when we know better, we often cling to what's familiar. This bias, called cognitive conservatism, is the tendency to stick with old ways of thinking, even when new, better options are available. Your brain resists change because change requires energy. It's easier to stay in familiar territory, even if it means repeating mistakes. This is why many people, businesses, and organizations resist innovation. They hold on to outdated systems and strategies, unwilling to explore better alternatives because it feels risky. It's like trying to keep your old car running instead of upgrading to a more fuel-efficient model. You're familiar with the car, it's comfortable, even if it's costing you more money and time. This resistance to change keeps you stuck, and breaking free requires the courage to let go of familiar but outdated methods. How do you break free? So, what can you do to stop the autopilot from taking control and start making more strategic decisions? The answer is simple but powerful. Develop cognitive control. Think of it like installing a mental override switch. Cognitive control is your ability to consciously direct your thoughts, override automatic responses, and deliberately choose more effective thinking strategies. It's like becoming the commander of your mind, instead of letting your brain run the show. Creating trigger recognition systems. The first step to gaining cognitive control is learning how to recognize when you're operating on autopilot. You need mental alarms that go off when you're in autopilot mode. Some common triggers might include feeling stuck on a problem, experiencing emotional reactions that seem out of proportion, realizing you're relying on the same old solutions without analyzing them, avoiding difficult decisions because they feel overwhelming. When you notice any of these triggers, it's time to shift gears and consciously engage your strategic thinking. Cognitive debiasing. Sharpening your thinking. Next, you need to tackle your brain's built-in biases. There are specific mental exercises designed to counteract the shortcuts your brain loves to take. Let's look at a few of these cognitive debiasing techniques. 1. The outside view method. Instead of focusing on what makes your situation unique, step back and ask yourself, what typically happens in situations like this? This helps you move away from seeing your situation as special and instead look at it through the lens of statistical patterns and base rates. 2. Prospective hindsight per mortem. Before making a decision, imagine that your plan has failed spectacularly. Now work backward to figure out what went wrong. This simple technique helps you spot potential problems and blind spots you may have missed in your initial analysis. 3. Consider the opposite. Whenever you're confident about a decision, try to play devil's advocate. Actively generate arguments for the opposite position. This isn't about doubting yourself. It's about stress testing your thinking and ensuring that your conclusion holds up under scrutiny. Emotional regulation. Mastering your state of mind. Breaking free from autopilot also requires emotional regulation. You need to regain control over your emotional responses, especially in high-pressure situations. One powerful technique is cognitive reappraisal, changing how you interpret a challenging situation. Instead of viewing it as a threat, reframe it as a learning opportunity or a puzzle to solve. This shift helps you approach the challenge with a clearer, calmer mind. Another key tool is temporal distancing. When you're feeling overwhelmed by an emotional situation, ask yourself how you'll feel about this in 10 years. How might someone from a different culture or time period view it? This helps reduce emotional intensity and lets you regain a strategic perspective. The road ahead. Breaking free from mental autopilot is an ongoing process. Your brain will always have a tendency to revert to old patterns, especially under stress. The goal is to develop the awareness to recognize when you're on autopilot and the tools to shift into deliberate thinking. With practice, this can become second nature. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the world of cognitive biases, the sneaky ways your brain deceives you into making poor decisions. Understanding and defeating these biases is crucial to becoming a master of strategic thinking. If you're finding these insights helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more thought-provoking content that'll change the way you think. Chapter 3: Recognizing and Defeating Cognitive Biases. Your brain is a master at one thing: lying to you. No, it's not intentional deception. It's more like your brain's attempt to make sense of an overwhelmingly complex world with limited time, energy, and mental resources. To cope, your mind has developed shortcuts called cognitive biases. These biases aren't just harmless quirks. They actively shape the way you think, often tricking you into making suboptimal decisions. And here's the kicker: they tend to be the most powerful when you think you're being most rational. Why does this happen? Well, to put it simply, your brain is lazy. It loves efficiency. And because our modern world is so complex, your brain uses these biases to simplify decision-making, often at the expense of accuracy. This works in familiar, routine situations. But when you're dealing with more complex or high-stakes decisions, biases can be disastrous. In this chapter, we're going to uncover the most common cognitive biases that undermine strategic thinking, and more importantly, how to defeat them. The dangers of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is one of the sneakiest and most dangerous cognitive biases you'll encounter. When you hold a belief, your brain will go on a mission to find information that supports it, ignoring or even dismissing anything that contradicts it. It's like wearing blinders that limit your view of the world. Imagine you've decided to buy a new car, and you're convinced that a particular model is the best choice. You start researching, and what happens? Your brain selectively picks out reviews and data that affirm your choice, while ignoring any warning signs about the car's flaws. Even when presented with contradictory evidence, you dismiss it as unreliable or irrelevant. This is confirmation bias in action. Now, think about how this can impact strategic decision-making. If you only seek out information that confirms your existing opinions, you're likely to miss critical perspectives that could have altered your course of action. The key to defeating confirmation bias is learning to challenge your beliefs, not just reinforce them. Actively search for disconfirming evidence. If you're looking to buy a car, look at reviews that highlight the potential downsides, and then make an informed decision based on the full picture. The availability heuristic, judging based on memory, not reality. Ever noticed how people tend to overestimate the likelihood of dramatic events, like plane crashes or terrorist attacks, just because these events are heavily covered in the media? That's the availability heuristic at work. This cognitive bias leads you to judge the frequency or probability of an event based on how easily examples come to mind. If you can quickly recall something, your brain assumes it's more common than it really is. This bias isn't just a harmless quirk. It can skew your judgment, especially when assessing risk. For example, after hearing about a series of high-profile plane crashes, you might begin to overestimate the risks of flying. In reality, air travel is one of the safest modes of transportation. The availability heuristic distorts your perception, making you think it's more dangerous than it truly is. To combat the availability heuristic, start by asking yourself, is my judgment based on the actual probabilities or just on what comes to mind easily? Take a step back and analyze the broader picture, not just the most easily accessible examples. The anchoring bias. How first impressions can lead you astray. The anchoring bias occurs when the first piece of information you receive about something disproportionately influences your subsequent judgments. For instance, let's say you're negotiating a salary. If the first offer you receive is $50,000, your brain will likely anchor your expectations around that number. Even if you have evidence that the market rate is higher, that first figure is likely to impact your perception of what a fair salary is. This happens all the time in decision-making. In business, you might receive an initial sales pitch that sets an anchor for the price of a product or service. Even if you later receive better offers or data, that first price becomes a reference point that influences your judgment. To defeat the anchoring bias, it's essential to recognize its power. When making decisions, remind yourself to not let initial information skew your analysis. Look at the full context, and don't be afraid to adjust your expectations based on new data. It's also helpful to ask, what if I hadn't received this information first? This question can help reset your thinking. The planning fallacy, overestimating your abilities, underestimating the challenges. The planning fallacy, it's that little voice that tells you, this project will take me a week, when deep down you know it will take at least a month. The planning fallacy causes you to systematically underestimate how long tasks will take and overestimate the likelihood of success. Even with past experience, people still fall prey to this bias. Why? Because they focus on the ideal scenario, ignoring potential complications and delays. Think about major projects, a software development initiative, a marketing campaign, or even something as simple as moving to a new city. You're so focused on the goal that you don't take into account the unexpected challenges that might pop up. This results in missed deadlines and unpreparedness. To overcome the planning fallacy, you need to take a broader view of the situation. Consider what went wrong in similar projects in the past and use that information to temper your expectations. Break the project down into smaller tasks and factor in time for unforeseen issues. The more you realistically account for potential obstacles, the more likely you are to hit your deadlines. Overconfidence bias. When you think you know more than you do you ever catch yourself thinking, I've got this. I know exactly what to do. It's tempting to feel overconfident, especially when you've had success in the past. But the overconfidence bias can be deadly. It leads you to overestimate your knowledge, abilities, and predictions, making you less likely to prepare for potential setbacks. This is common in areas like investing, business strategy, and personal decision-making. Overconfident decision-makers don't bother seeking advice, reevaluating their assumptions, or planning for the worst-case scenario. Instead, they focus on the best possible outcome, ignoring the full range of possibilities. The solution: intellectual humility. Recognize that your knowledge is limited and be open to the idea that you might be wrong. Seek out advice from others, especially those with different perspectives. Always ask yourself, what am I missing here? And what assumptions am I making that could be wrong? Defeating cognitive biases. The key to clearer thinking, becoming aware of these cognitive biases, is the first step toward mastering strategic thinking. But awareness alone isn't enough. To truly overcome these biases, you need to practice cognitive debiasing techniques every day. Start questioning your assumptions. Look for patterns of behavior that may be influencing your decisions without your awareness. And most importantly, train yourself to make decisions not based on impulsive reactions or outdated mental shortcuts, but on careful, rational analysis. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the tools that can help you develop the cognitive flexibility needed to overcome these biases and elevate your strategic thinking to a whole new level. If you're finding value in this audiobook, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook and stay tuned for more strategies that will sharpen your decision-making. Chapter 4. The power of mental models. If you want to become a master strategist, there's one concept you absolutely need to understand: mental models. Mental models are the hidden blueprints your brain uses to navigate the world. They shape how you think, interpret situations, and make decisions. In fact, mental models are the most powerful cognitive tools you can use to improve your strategic thinking. But here's the catch: most people don't consciously realize the mental models they're using. They're unaware of the frameworks shaping their perceptions and decisions. As a result, they often make decisions based on limited or flawed mental models. To become a strategic thinker, you need to build a diverse toolkit of mental models that you can draw upon for any situation. What are mental models? A mental model is essentially a simplified representation of how something works. It's a thinking tool that helps you understand, predict, and navigate complex situations by providing structure to your analysis. Think of them as lenses through which you view the world. Imagine you're trying to make a business decision. You might consider mental models like systems thinking to understand how all the variables interact, or probabilistic thinking to assess the likelihood of success. Each of these models offers a unique perspective, helping you analyze the situation from different angles. The magic happens when you start combining different mental models from various fields. This allows you to approach problems with a broader perspective, drawing insights from areas you might not have considered. Polymaths, people who have expertise in multiple domains, are excellent at applying mental models from one field to solve problems in another. This ability to transfer insights across domains is a key component of strategic thinking. Mental models for systems and feedback loops. One of the most fundamental mental models is systems thinking. Systems thinking helps you understand that everything is interconnected. In any situation, there are multiple variables that interact with each other to create outcomes. These interactions can form positive or negative feedback loops. Feedback loops are the forces that either amplify or dampen changes in a system. There are two types: positive feedback loops, which amplify changes and lead to exponential growth or decline. For example, the success of a business can create more resources, which leads to even more success. However, the opposite can also happen. A lack of success leads to fewer resources, which causes even more failure. Negative feedback loops, which stabilize a system by counteracting changes. For instance, when the body feels too hot, it sweats to cool down, returning the system to equilibrium. Understanding these feedback loops can help you identify why problems persist, even when you think you've solved them. It can also guide you in designing interventions that either capitalize on positive feedback or mitigate the effects of negative feedback. Leverage points, small changes, big impact. Another powerful mental model is leverage thinking. Leverage refers to finding the small, high-impact actions that can produce massive results. In any system, there are points of maximum leverage where a minor change can create disproportionate outcomes. For example, think about someone trying to lose weight. Instead of focusing on every possible change, they might focus on one key area: diet. If they adopt a balanced, healthy eating habit, it can lead to huge improvements in their overall health with far less effort than trying to overhaul every aspect of their lifestyle at once. By focusing on a leverage point, you can achieve greater results with less input. In business, leverage points might involve optimizing key processes that improve efficiency, reducing costs in a specific area, or focusing on high-value customers who will provide the most return on investment. Recognizing and exploiting leverage points is a hallmark of strategic thinking. Probabilistic thinking, calculating the likelihood of success. To think strategically, you also need to master probabilistic thinking. This is the ability to think in terms of likelihoods rather than certainties. In strategic decision-making, there are often multiple possible outcomes, and probabilistic thinking helps you assess which outcomes are most likely. Instead of asking, "Will this work?" strategic thinkers ask, "What's the probability this will work? And what are the possible ranges of outcomes?" Probabilistic thinking helps you navigate uncertainty by considering different scenarios and evaluating how likely each one is. For example, when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he didn't know that it would become the giant it is today. What he did know was that the internet had a high probability of growing into a major platform for commerce. Bezos positioned himself to take advantage of that growth, even though the exact outcomes were uncertain. To apply probabilistic thinking, you need to assess risks and rewards, consider the full range of possible scenarios, and make decisions based on the most likely outcomes, not the ideal scenario. First principles thinking, breaking problems down to the core. Another key mental model in strategic thinking is first principles thinking. This mental model involves breaking complex problems down to their most basic elements and then reassembling them in a new, creative way. Instead of relying on analogies or conventional wisdom, you go back to the fundamentals and build up from there. Take Elon Musk's approach to designing rockets. Instead of accepting that rockets are expensive, Musk broke the problem down to its core components. raw materials, fuel, and propulsion. He realized that the materials used to build rockets were much cheaper than the price of a fully assembled rocket. By questioning assumptions and looking at the problem from first principles, Musk was able to develop reusable rockets that drastically reduced the cost of space travel. Applying first principles thinking allows you to strip away preconceived notions and discover innovative solutions that others might miss. It's about questioning everything and looking for opportunities to reinvent the wheel, not just keep spinning it. Mental models for decision-making and risk assessment. As a strategic thinker, it's essential to have a toolkit of mental models for decision-making and risk assessment. One powerful decision-making model is the 20/80 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. This model suggests that 20% of your efforts will yield 80% of your results. By focusing on the most impactful activities, you can maximize your results while minimizing wasted effort. Another important model is opportunity cost. This is the cost of foregoing the next best alternative when making a decision. Strategic thinkers constantly weigh the opportunity cost of their choices, ensuring they're making the best use of their time and resources. For example, if you spend an hour on a low-priority task, you miss the opportunity to spend that time on something more valuable. Building your mental model toolkit. Now that we've explored some of the key mental models that drive strategic thinking, it's time to start building your own toolkit. Start by exploring models from different domains: business, psychology, economics, biology, and even history. The more diverse your mental models, the more creative and effective you'll be at solving complex problems. As you build your toolkit, remember that no single model will give you the complete picture. The real power comes from combining multiple models to get a broader view of the situation. Think of your mental models as different lenses through which you can analyze and understand the world. When you combine these lenses, you gain a clearer, more accurate picture of the challenges you face. If you're enjoying this audiobook and eager for more, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for ongoing insights and strategies that will take your thinking to the next level. Thinking and how it can revolutionize your approach to problems. Chapter 5. First Principles Thinking Revolution. Most people think by analogy. They encounter a new problem or challenge and ask, "What does this remind me of?" They then try to apply solutions that worked in similar situations. This approach is often effective, but it has its limits. It keeps you stuck within the boundaries of existing solutions, making it harder to innovate or solve problems that seem too big to tackle. This is where first principles thinking comes into play. First principles thinking isn't about comparing a new situation to an old one. It's about breaking down the problem to its fundamental elements and then building up from there. This approach isn't just about solving problems better, it's about solving problems that others can't even see. When you reason from first principles, you question everything. You strip away assumptions, traditions, and the conventional wisdom that might limit your thinking. It's like peeling away layers of a puzzle until you get to the very core, where you can start to see possibilities that were invisible before. The power of breaking things down. The first step in first principles thinking is breaking a problem down to its basic components. Instead of starting with what's already known, start by asking yourself, what do we know for sure? Let's say you're trying to build a new type of energy-efficient car. Instead of asking, how can I make a car that's more efficient than others? Ask, what are the core elements that make a car run? What is the fundamental problem I'm trying to solve? By breaking down a complex problem into its most basic elements, the laws of physics, the requirements for transportation, the materials involved, you can often find more efficient or creative solutions than by trying to tweak existing models. This is how Elon Musk approached the design of electric cars and rockets. Instead of following conventional thinking, he broke down the problem to its fundamental components and built up a better solution. Questioning assumptions. The key to innovation. First principles thinking also requires questioning your assumptions. Every industry, every field of knowledge is built on a foundation of assumptions. things that are taken for granted and rarely questioned. But here's the thing, those assumptions are often the very reason we struggle to solve big, complex problems. Take the example of space travel. The traditional assumption about rockets was that they had to be used only once. That's how it had always been done, and everyone accepted it. But Musk didn't accept this assumption. Instead, he asked, why do rockets have to be single-use? Could they be reused like airplanes? By questioning this fundamental assumption, Musk revolutionized space travel. This kind of thinking isn't just for tech entrepreneurs. It applies to every area of life. Whether you're designing a new product, building a career, or even approaching a personal problem, asking questions like, why does it have to be this way? And what if I start from scratch? Can uncover opportunities you never thought possible. Rebuilding from the ground up. The next step in first principles thinking is rebuilding solutions from the ground up. Once you've broken the problem down and identified the core elements, the next challenge is to rethink how those components can be combined in a new and innovative way. In the case of electric vehicles, instead of trying to improve traditional gasoline-powered cars, Musk looked at how electric motors, batteries, and materials could be used to create a completely different kind of vehicle. He didn't just settle for improving the existing car model. He reimagined the entire concept of what a car could be. This mindset is crucial for tackling big problems that have resisted solutions for years. When you approach a challenge with a blank slate, you open up a world of possibilities that were hidden under the weight of tradition and assumption. First principles thinking in practice. First principles thinking isn't just a theoretical concept. It's something you can practice every day to solve complex problems and make smarter decisions. Here's how you can start applying it in your own life. 1. Identify the problem. Start by clearly defining the problem you're trying to solve. Be specific about what you're trying to achieve and why it matters. 2. Break it down. Deconstruct the problem into its most basic elements. What are the fundamental truths about the situation? What do you know for sure? Ignore the assumptions and conventional wisdom that usually cloud your thinking. 3. Question your assumptions. Look at each piece of the problem and ask, why do we do it this way? Is this the only way? What assumptions are we making that might be limiting us? Challenge everything, including your own assumptions. 4. Rebuild the solution using the basic components you've identified. Rebuild a new solution from scratch. What's the simplest, most efficient way to solve this problem? How can you combine the components in a unique and creative way? 5. Test and iterate. Put your solution to the test. It might not be perfect the first time, and that's okay. The key is to keep iterating, learning from your mistakes, and improving your approach. Innovation is a process, not an instant result. A personal example. Rethinking career paths. First principles thinking isn't just for entrepreneurs or scientists. You can apply it to your own life, especially when it comes to career decisions. So let's say you're stuck in a job that feels unfulfilling, and you're not sure what your next step should be. 1. Identify the problem. You feel unhappy and unfulfilled in your current job, and you want to change. 2. Break it down. What are the core elements of your job? What do you enjoy about it? What do you dislike? What skills do you have that are transferable to other roles? 3. Question your assumptions. Are you assuming that you need to follow a traditional career path? Are you letting societal expectations dictate your choices? What if you could create your own career path, independent of others' expectations? 4. Rebuild the solution. Perhaps you realize that you don't need to follow the traditional route of climbing the corporate ladder. Maybe you decide to pursue a passion project, start a side business, or even change industries entirely. You're not confined by the conventional career path. You're building a new one from the ground up. 5. Test and iterate. You take small steps toward your new career path, testing the waters, learning along the way, and adjusting your approach based on what you learn. You build momentum until you've created a career that truly aligns with your interests and values. First principles thinking for strategic advantage. When you use first principles thinking, you don't just solve problems differently, you see the world differently. You look for opportunities where others see obstacles, and you question the status quo, finding innovative solutions where others are stuck. This approach is the foundation for true strategic thinking. It's how the greatest innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders have been able to create revolutionary changes in their fields. First principles thinking empowers you to create solutions from the ground up, reimagining the way you approach challenges. It's not about following established paths, it's about charting your own course, free from the limitations of conventional thinking. If you're finding these insights helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more game-changing strategies that will revolutionize your decision-making. Chapter 7, Pattern Recognition and Strategic Anticipation. Imagine you have a superpower, the ability to see patterns in the chaos around you before anyone else does. What if you could spot trends, predict outcomes, and make decisions long before others even realize what's happening? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But the truth is, pattern recognition and strategic anticipation are not only possible, they're crucial skills that top strategists, entrepreneurs, and even chess grandmasters use every day to stay ahead of the game. At its core, pattern recognition is the ability to see recurring sequences of events, behaviors, or dynamics that others might miss. It's about connecting the dots in ways that seem invisible at first glance. And when combined with strategic anticipation, you can forecast future trends and make decisions that position you for success before everyone else catches up. But how do you develop this ability to recognize patterns? And more importantly, how do you use them to your advantage? Let's break it down. What is pattern recognition? Pattern recognition isn't just about noticing things. It's about recognizing meaningful patterns that can guide your decisions. It's like looking at a puzzle and instantly seeing how the pieces fit together. It's the ability to predict how things will unfold, not by guessing, but by understanding the underlying systems at play. For instance, in the world of business, pattern recognition is what allows successful entrepreneurs to anticipate market shifts. They see the subtle signs, consumer behavior changes, technological advancements, competitor strategies, and they use this information to make proactive decisions. Think about the last time you watched a professional athlete. They don't just react to the game as it happens. They anticipate what's going to happen next. They know the patterns of their opponent's movements, the flow of the game, and they position themselves to take advantage of these patterns before they even emerge. That's pattern recognition in action. So how do you develop this skill for yourself? Building your pattern recognition skills, the first step to developing pattern recognition is active observation. Most people simply observe what happens in their environment without truly paying attention to the subtle cues that are constantly unfolding around them. To develop pattern recognition, you need to observe not just for what is happening right now, but for recurring themes, behaviors, or events that might predict what's to come. Start by asking yourself questions like, what are the common factors in past successes and failures in this situation? What have I seen in this industry, market, or scenario before that could provide insight into the present moment? Are there any early signals or trends that seem to be emerging, even if they're not fully developed yet? The more you actively observe and note these patterns, the stronger your ability to recognize them in the future. Understanding meta patterns. Patterns within patterns. Once you get the hang of recognizing surface-level patterns, you can start to look for deeper, meta patterns. These are patterns that exist within patterns, and they're incredibly powerful in strategic thinking. Meta patterns are overarching trends or themes that can apply across multiple fields or domains. When you begin to notice these bigger trends, you start to develop what I like to call meta pattern recognition. It's the ability to see how patterns from one area of life or work can translate into another. For example, consider network effects. This is a meta pattern that appears in many industries. The more users a product or service has, the more valuable it becomes. From social media platforms to online marketplaces, this concept can be applied across a variety of sectors. Recognizing network effects early on can help you predict the success of a new business model or technology before it becomes mainstream. Another powerful meta pattern is anti-fragility. Some systems or organizations grow stronger when exposed to volatility or stress. The more you observe how anti-fragile systems thrive in adversity, be it in the stock market, in nature, or even in personal development, the better you become at predicting how businesses or strategies will perform when things don't go as planned. By recognizing these meta patterns, you can apply them to new situations, seeing connections that others might overlook, using pattern recognition for strategic advantage. So, you've developed your pattern recognition skills. Now what? How do you use this power to your advantage? The next step is strategic anticipation. This is the ability to forecast future trends and outcomes based on the patterns you've recognized. It's not about predicting the future with absolute certainty. It's about assessing the probabilities and preparing for multiple potential outcomes. Take a look at leading indicators. These are early signals that suggest a larger trend or event is about to unfold. In business, this might be early customer feedback on a new product, changes in consumer sentiment, or emerging technologies that could disrupt existing industries. By identifying these leading indicators, you can position yourself ahead of the curve, taking action before others even realize the trend has started. Let's say you're running a startup in a competitive industry. You notice a pattern: more and more consumers are shifting toward eco-friendly products. This might not be an obvious trend yet, but you recognize it as a leading indicator that the demand for sustainability will only grow. By anticipating this shift, you can position your company to cater to this new demand, gaining an advantage over competitors who are still focused on traditional products. Another way to use pattern recognition is through scenario planning. This involves imagining multiple possible futures based on the patterns you've observed and preparing strategies for each scenario. Instead of focusing on one ideal outcome, you consider a range of possibilities and develop responses for each one. This helps you stay agile and adaptable, ready to pivot when new patterns emerge or when the current ones change. Cross-domain pattern recognition. One of the most powerful ways to enhance your strategic thinking is to apply cross-domain pattern recognition. This involves recognizing similar patterns across different fields, industries, or even disciplines. The more you learn about how systems work in various contexts, the better you become at recognizing patterns that others might miss. For example, in both biology and business, the concept of evolutionary adaptation plays a crucial role. In nature, species that can adapt to changing environments are more likely to survive and thrive. In business, companies that can adapt to market changes, technological advancements, or consumer preferences are more likely to succeed. By understanding the evolutionary principles that govern both nature and business, you gain a broader perspective on how organizations can survive and prosper. The same goes for network effects. Whether you're looking at social media platforms, communication networks, or supply chains, the principle that the value of a network increases as more people join applies across a wide range of domains. By recognizing this pattern, you can identify opportunities in new markets or technologies that others might overlook. Mastering pattern recognition for long-term success. Ultimately, mastering pattern recognition and strategic anticipation isn't about predicting every single detail. It's about sharpening your ability to see the bigger picture, connecting dots that others miss, and positioning yourself to thrive in an ever-changing world. The more you practice these skills, the more you'll notice patterns everywhere, guiding your decisions and giving you an edge over others. But remember, pattern recognition isn't just about spotting trends, it's about acting on those insights. Once you see the patterns, you need to anticipate the future, make strategic decisions, and act before others even realize what's happening. If you're enjoying these insights and ready to unlock more strategies, make sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for continuous wisdom that will sharpen your strategic thinking. Chapter 8: Advanced Problem Decomposition Techniques. Imagine you're looking at a massive mountain, so towering and steep that it feels impossible to climb. the challenge seems insurmountable. You start to feel overwhelmed, unsure where to begin. This is exactly how many people feel when faced with complex problems in their work, life, or business. But what if I told you that the key to tackling this mountain isn't to climb it all at once, but to break it down into manageable, smaller pieces? This is the magic of problem decomposition. Rather than attacking a problem as a whole, you break it into its individual components, address each one systematically, and then see how everything fits together. This approach allows you to deal with complexity in a structured way, making seemingly impossible challenges feel more manageable. It's one of the most powerful strategies used by the world's top problem solvers. But here's the secret. Advanced problem decomposition isn't just about splitting a problem into pieces. It's about understanding the structure of the problem, recognizing its dependencies, and addressing the core issues that drive the surface-level challenges. Let's explore how to break problems down in a way that brings clarity and opens up new paths for solutions. The fundamentals of problem decomposition. When faced with a complex problem, most people are tempted to dive straight into solving it. However, that approach often leads to frustration and inefficiency. Instead, decomposition involves pulling the problem apart, understanding its components, and figuring out how they interact with each other. A good starting point is to identify the core components of the problem. Every complex problem is made up of simpler parts, and understanding those parts is key to creating a solution. To break down a problem, ask yourself, what are the major elements involved in this problem? What are the functions or processes that need to occur to solve it? How do these elements interact, and how do they affect one another? Let's say you're trying to improve a product's performance. Instead of trying to improve the entire product in one go, start by breaking it into its key components: design, materials, manufacturing process, and user experience. Then analyze each component and identify which part needs the most attention. This will give you a clearer, more structured path to improvement. Structural decomposition. Understanding relationships. Once you've identified the core components of your problem, the next step is structural decomposition. This involves mapping out the relationships between these components and understanding how they influence each other. Many complex problems are not isolated issues. They are systems of interconnected parts that depend on one another. Let's use the example of a business that is experiencing declining profits. At first glance, it may seem like the problem is related to poor sales, but upon deeper analysis, you might find that the real issue lies in the supply chain, marketing strategy, or even employee morale. Structural decomposition allows you to map out all the parts of the system and see how they interconnect. By understanding the underlying structure, you can identify feedback loops and causal relationships that are driving the problem. Are there certain actions that exacerbate the issue? Are there specific areas where small changes can create significant improvements? This insight into the structure of the problem is key to finding effective solutions. Functional decomposition. Breaking down the actions next, we look at functional decomposition. This technique focuses on breaking a problem down into the specific functions or actions that need to happen in order to solve it. For example, let's say you're working on a complex software development project. Rather than trying to tackle the entire project at once, break it down into the various functions. Planning, what needs to be done to lay the foundation. Designing, what are the technical specifications. Building, what specific coding tasks need to be completed. Testing, how will the product be tested and validated. By focusing on each function and breaking it into smaller, manageable tasks, you can more easily prioritize and tackle each part of the problem. It helps prevent feeling overwhelmed by the entire scope of the project and allows you to make steady progress. Temporal decomposition. Managing time horizons. Some problems feel overwhelming because they mix urgent, immediate issues with long-term strategic challenges. This is where temporal decomposition comes into play. This approach involves separating problems based on time horizons and addressing each one with the appropriate tools and timelines. For example, let's say your business is facing immediate cash flow issues, but you're also working on a long-term growth strategy. Rather than trying to solve both problems simultaneously, separate them into two distinct work streams. 1. Immediate work. What can you do right now to stabilize cash flow, such as renegotiating contracts or cutting unnecessary costs? 2. Strategic work. What long-term initiatives can you focus on to build sustainable growth, such as market expansion or product development? By managing your time horizons separately, you can take care of immediate needs without losing sight of long-term objectives. This also helps you avoid feeling overwhelmed by the need to solve everything at once. Constraint-based decomposition. Identifying limiting factors. Every problem has constraints, factors that limit your ability to solve it. These might include time, budget, resources, or other external conditions. Constraint-based decomposition involves identifying and categorizing these constraints to help you focus on what's most important. For example, if you're working on a product design but have limited resources, you might identify your constraints as time. You only have 2 months to complete the design. Budget. You have a strict budget that limits your material choices. Technology. Certain technologies or tools aren't available for use. By understanding the constraints you're working with, you can make decisions that will help you optimize within those limits. This often requires creative problem solving to find ways around constraints or make trade-offs that still get you closer to your goal. Root cause decomposition. Tackling the underlying problem. Often, what appears to be a problem is simply a symptom of a deeper, more fundamental issue. Root cause decomposition focuses on digging deeper to uncover the real drivers of a problem, rather than just addressing its surface-level symptoms. To uncover the root cause, ask the 5 whys. This method involves repeatedly asking the question, "Why did this happen?" until you reach the underlying cause. Let's say your team is consistently missing deadlines. Instead of just pushing them to work faster, ask why. 1. Why are we missing deadlines? Because the work is taking longer than expected. 2. Why is the work taking longer? Because the tasks aren't well defined. 3. Why aren't the tasks well defined? Because we haven't properly scoped the project. 4. Why haven't we properly scoped the project? Because the requirements weren't clear from the client. 5. Why weren't the requirements clear? Because we didn't ask the right questions during the initial meetings. By asking why repeatedly, you get to the root cause, the lack of proper requirement gathering, and can address that issue directly, rather than just treating the symptom, missed deadlines. Putting it all together, once you've used these advanced decomposition techniques, you'll have a much clearer picture of your problem. You'll understand the structure, the functions, the constraints, the timelines, and the root causes. And more importantly, you'll know where to focus your energy and resources to get the best results. The beauty of problem decomposition is that it transforms seemingly insurmountable challenges into a series of smaller, manageable tasks. It allows you to take control of complexity and break down the barriers that prevent progress. If you're finding this audiobook valuable, make sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more in-depth strategies that will take your problem-solving and decision-making to the next level. Chapter 9, Emotional Intelligence in Strategic Thinking. Strategic thinking isn't purely rational. While logic and analysis play critical roles, emotions provide vital information about your values, priorities, and potential outcomes, information that purely logical analysis might miss. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is the ability to understand and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. It's a crucial skill for making decisions, building relationships, and successfully navigating complex situations. In fact, strategic thinkers who develop their emotional intelligence are far more likely to make informed, well-rounded decisions that lead to long-term success. Let's be clear. Emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't matter. It's about integrating your emotions with your logic to make better, more comprehensive decisions. Emotions and logic don't have to be at odds. When you learn to manage both, you can enhance your strategic thinking. The four pillars of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is made up of four core components. 1. Emotional awareness. 2. Emotional regulation. 3. Social awareness. 4. Relationship management. Let's break down each one and explore how it plays a role in strategic thinking. 1. Emotional awareness. Recognizing your own emotions. The first step to emotional intelligence is emotional awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions and how they influence your thoughts and actions. This isn't just about recognizing when you're angry or frustrated. It's about becoming aware of the full spectrum of emotions you experience and understanding why they arise. For example, imagine you're in a high-stakes business meeting and you feel your anxiety levels rising. If you're emotionally aware, you might realize that your anxiety is not just about the presentation, but about the fear of being judged. Recognizing this allows you to take a step back, calm yourself, and shift your focus to the task at hand. Being emotionally aware gives you the ability to pause, reflect, and gain insights into why you're reacting the way you are. This allows you to make decisions based on understanding your emotional triggers rather than reacting impulsively. 2. Emotional regulation. Managing your emotions under pressure. Emotional regulation is the ability to control your emotions, especially in stressful situations. Emotional regulation doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or suppressing them. Rather, it's about managing them in a way that helps you stay calm and focused, even when emotions are running high. When you're in a tense negotiation or making a critical decision, emotional regulation allows you to remain composed, think clearly, and avoid rash decisions driven by fear, frustration, or anger. You can take a deep breath, analyze the situation, and respond with logic, not emotional impulse. For example, imagine you're faced with a conflict at work. If you feel angry, emotional regulation helps you avoid reacting in a way that might escalate the situation. Instead of firing back with an emotional response, you can control your reactions, focus on the issue at hand, and engage in constructive problem solving. Effective emotional regulation ensures that emotions inform your thinking without overwhelming your cognitive abilities. It allows you to balance empathy and logic, making decisions that are both emotionally and rationally sound. 3. Social awareness. Understanding the emotions of others. Social awareness is the ability to recognize and understand the emotions of others. It involves empathy, the capacity to feel what others are feeling and understand their emotional state. This is a key skill in leadership, negotiation, and relationship building. When you're aware of the emotions of others, you can adjust your actions, words, and decisions to align with their feelings. This makes it easier to build trust, manage conflict, and form effective relationships. For instance, imagine you're leading a team and one member seems withdrawn and disengaged. Through social awareness, you can recognize that something might be troubling them. By asking questions and offering support, you open the door to better communication and problem solving. You can also adjust your leadership style to meet their needs, ensuring that everyone is on the same page. In strategic thinking, social awareness is vital for understanding the motivations, desires, and concerns of others. This insight helps you anticipate reactions, adjust your approach, and build stronger alliances. 4. Relationship management. Using emotions to influence and lead. The final component of emotional intelligence is relationship management, the ability to manage interactions and relationships effectively. This involves using your emotional awareness and social skills to guide others, resolve conflicts, and influence decisions in a positive way. Strong relationship management allows you to motivate, inspire, and build trust within your team or organization. It's about aligning emotional and rational considerations to foster cooperation, loyalty, and collaboration. For example, in a business setting, you might need to influence a team member who is resistant to change. Instead of simply issuing instructions, you could appeal to their emotional needs and values. You might emphasize how the change will benefit them personally or how it aligns with the broader vision they care about. By leveraging your emotional intelligence, you can create a win-win scenario that benefits everyone involved. Relationship management is crucial in strategic thinking because it helps you navigate complex human dynamics. It ensures that you not only understand the emotions of others, but also know how to use that understanding to create positive outcomes. How emotional intelligence enhances strategic thinking. Now that we understand the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence, let's explore how they enhance strategic thinking. 1. Improved decision-making. When you're emotionally aware and regulated, you can make more thoughtful decisions. You won't be swayed by temporary emotions like fear or anger, allowing you to assess the situation clearly and make decisions based on logic and strategy. 2. Better conflict resolution. Emotional intelligence helps you manage conflict effectively. By recognizing the emotions of others and regulating your own, you can de-escalate tense situations and find collaborative solutions. 3. Stronger leadership. Strategic thinkers who excel in emotional intelligence are able to inspire and motivate others. They can empathize with their team, provide constructive feedback, and build trust, which leads to higher performance and better results. 4. Increased adaptability. When you can understand and manage emotions, you can adapt to changing circumstances more effectively. Emotional intelligence helps you stay resilient in the face of setbacks and adjust your strategy when necessary. 5. Building and maintaining relationships. At its core, emotional intelligence strengthens relationships. Whether you're negotiating, collaborating, or leading, understanding emotions allows you to build rapport, resolve disagreements, and form lasting connections. Emotional intelligence in practice. A case study. Let's look at an example of emotional intelligence in action. Imagine you're a CEO of a growing startup. You're facing a major decision, whether to expand into a new market. The stakes are high, and there's a lot of pressure from investors, employees, and other stakeholders. With high emotional intelligence, you would first take stock of your own emotions. Are you feeling too anxious or too excited? Recognizing these feelings allows you to check whether you're making this decision with clarity or if emotions are clouding your judgment. Next, you would pay attention to your team's emotions. Are they excited about the new market, or do they have concerns? Are there any underlying fears or uncertainties you need to address? Finally, by applying emotional regulation and relationship management, you can address any concerns with your investors, employees, and other key players. By communicating empathetically, you create alignment and ensure that everyone is on board with the strategy. The result: a decision that's thoughtful, strategic, and backed by the emotional support of your team. How to improve your emotional intelligence. Improving your emotional intelligence is a lifelong process, but there are several strategies you can use to start building these skills. Practice mindfulness. Regular meditation and mindfulness exercises help you stay in tune with your emotions and improve emotional regulation. Seek feedback. Ask for feedback on how others perceive your emotional responses and be open to adjusting your approach. Develop empathy. Actively practice listening and trying to understand the emotions of others. This will improve your social awareness. Manage stress. Practice techniques like deep breathing, exercise, and journaling to manage stress and keep your emotions in check during high-pressure situations. Set emotional goals. Just like any other skill, emotional intelligence improves with practice. Set goals for yourself in each of the 4 areas and work on them consistently. If you're finding these strategies helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more insights into how emotional intelligence and strategic thinking can reshape your decision-making and leadership. Chapter 10. Building adaptable intelligence in a rapidly changing world. In today's world, change is constant. The pace of technological advancement, economic shifts, and social dynamics is accelerating at an unprecedented rate. What worked yesterday might not work today, and what works today might be obsolete tomorrow. The ability to adapt, evolve, and remain flexible is no longer just a nice-to-have skill, it's essential for survival and success. This is where adaptable intelligence comes in. Adaptable intelligence is the ability to adjust your thinking, strategies, and actions in response to changing circumstances. It's about being mentally flexible, open to new ideas, and willing to change your approach when necessary. In an age where the future is unpredictable, adaptable intelligence allows you to thrive in uncertainty and complexity. But how do you build this kind of intelligence? How do you stay adaptable when the world around you keeps shifting? The foundation of adaptable intelligence. Intellectual humility. At the heart of adaptable intelligence is intellectual humility, the recognition that your current understanding is provisional and improvable. This doesn't mean lacking confidence in your judgments. On the contrary, it means holding your beliefs loosely enough to update them when better evidence becomes available. Many people cling to their existing beliefs, even in the face of contradictory evidence. This cognitive rigidity can lead to poor decision-making and missed opportunities. Adaptable thinkers, on the other hand, embrace uncertainty and change. They are willing to revise their views, learn new things, and evolve their strategies as the situation demands. Intellectual humility allows you to remain open to new information, question your assumptions, and update your mental models as you learn and grow. It's about recognizing that no one has all the answers and that the world is constantly changing. By adopting this mindset, you're better equipped to handle challenges and adapt to new circumstances. Overcoming cognitive rigidity. The dangers of fixed thinking. Many of us have mental frameworks that served us well in the past. These frameworks are often shaped by our upbringing, culture, education, and experiences. While these frameworks can be useful, they can also become mental traps if we rely on them too heavily. Cognitive rigidity is the tendency to stick to familiar patterns of thinking, even when they no longer serve us. It's the mindset that says, "This is the way we've always done it, so it must be the right way." Cognitive rigidity can cause you to overlook new opportunities, resist change, and hold on to outdated beliefs that no longer work in the current context. One of the biggest challenges of cognitive rigidity is confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that supports your existing beliefs and ignore evidence that contradicts them. This bias reinforces your current way of thinking, making it harder to adapt to new information. Overcoming cognitive rigidity requires you to actively seek out divergent perspectives and contradictory evidence. It means challenging your own assumptions and being willing to embrace discomfort when faced with new or unfamiliar ideas. By doing so, you allow your thinking to remain fluid and adaptable, ensuring that you can adjust when new challenges arise. Cognitive flexibility. The ability to shift thinking modes. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to switch between different modes of thinking, depending on the situation. Sometimes you need to be analytical, breaking down complex problems into smaller, manageable parts. Other times, you need to be synthetic, combining disparate ideas into a larger pattern. And in certain situations, you might need to adopt a creative mindset, thinking outside the box to generate innovative solutions. Strategic thinkers use cognitive flexibility to assess situations from multiple angles. They can shift gears quickly, depending on the needs of the moment. For example, when dealing with a technical problem, you might use analytical thinking to identify the root cause and develop a solution. However, when brainstorming new ideas, you might shift to a more creative mindset to generate fresh concepts. Cognitive flexibility is critical in complex, dynamic environments because it allows you to move fluidly between different types of thinking. It's about being versatile and knowing when to apply the right thinking tool for the job. This flexibility allows you to approach problems with a broader perspective, making it easier to find creative and effective solutions. Active belief updating. Evolving your mental models to stay adaptable, you need to engage in active belief updating. This means regularly examining your core beliefs and assumptions and being open to the possibility that they might need to change. The more you practice updating your beliefs, the better equipped you'll be to adapt to new information and changing circumstances. For example, when faced with a new business challenge, you might find that your usual approach no longer works. Instead of stubbornly sticking to your old methods, you actively seek out new strategies, tools, and perspectives. This process of belief updating requires curiosity, self-reflection, and a willingness to unlearn outdated ideas. Active belief updating is crucial because it prevents you from becoming stagnant. As new technologies, ideas, and trends emerge, your ability to incorporate these changes into your thinking keeps you relevant and prepared for whatever comes next. Scenario planning, preparing for multiple futures. One of the most powerful tools for building adaptable intelligence is scenario planning. Scenario planning involves developing multiple possible future scenarios based on key uncertainties, and then preparing strategies for each one. Instead of focusing on predicting a single outcome, you create several plausible scenarios and design flexible plans that can be adapted to different situations. For example, imagine you're running a business in a rapidly changing market. Instead of assuming that everything will stay the same, you consider several possible scenarios. 1. Scenario 1. The market grows rapidly and demand for your product skyrockets. 2. Scenario 2. The market experiences a downturn and demand drops significantly. 3. Scenario 3. A new competitor enters the market with disruptive technology. For each of these scenarios, you develop strategies to navigate the situation. By planning for multiple futures, you reduce the risk of being caught off guard by unexpected changes. This flexibility allows you to pivot quickly and make informed decisions, regardless of how the future unfolds. Scenario planning isn't about predicting the future with certainty. It's about preparing for uncertainty. It helps you anticipate potential challenges and opportunities, ensuring that you're ready to act when the time comes. Learning velocity. The key to staying ahead in a fast-paced world, the ability to learn quickly, is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. This is what we call learning velocity, the speed at which you acquire new knowledge and skills. In a rapidly changing environment, the faster you can learn, the better positioned you are to adapt to new circumstances. Learning velocity involves several key components: efficient learning processes, developing methods for quickly absorbing and retaining new information; meta skills, focusing on skills that transfer across domains, such as critical thinking, problem solving, and communication; curiosity, maintaining a strong desire to learn and explore new ideas, even in areas outside your immediate expertise. To improve your learning velocity, focus on active learning, engaging with material through discussion, experimentation, and practice, rather than passive reading or listening. Additionally, prioritize learning meta skills that help you approach any challenge with an adaptable mindset. Feedback loop optimization. Adapting based on results. Adaptable thinkers use feedback loops to continuously improve and adjust their strategies. A feedback loop is a process where you take action, evaluate the results, and make adjustments based on what you've learned. This constant cycle of action, reflection, and adjustment allows you to fine-tune your approach over time. The key to optimizing your feedback loops is objective measurement. You need clear metrics to track your progress and identify when things aren't working. When you notice that a strategy isn't yielding the desired results, you can pivot quickly and adjust your approach based on new information. In business, this might mean testing a new marketing strategy, analyzing the data, and tweaking your approach based on customer feedback. In personal development, it might mean setting goals, tracking your progress, and adjusting your methods to stay on track. By constantly optimizing your feedback loops, you create a self-improving system that helps you adapt to change and continually refine your approach. If you're gaining valuable insights from this audiobook, be sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more in-depth strategies on building adaptable intelligence and staying ahead in an ever-changing world. Chapter 11, Advanced Influence and Persuasion Strategies. Imagine you're in a negotiation. You're trying to secure a deal, but you're up against a tough opponent. They're making their case with every tool in their arsenal, from logic to emotional appeals. But what if you could use advanced influence techniques to subtly guide the conversation in your favor? What if you could persuade others to see things your way, not by manipulation, but by understanding the psychology behind their decisions? Influence isn't about coercion or force. It's about understanding human behavior deeply enough that you can communicate and act in ways that align with how people naturally think and make decisions. When done right, influence creates win-win situations where both parties feel that they're getting something valuable out of the interaction. It's about creating conditions that lead people to the conclusions you want them to reach naturally. In this chapter, we'll dive into the most powerful strategies for influence and persuasion, backed by psychological principles that have stood the test of time. These techniques aren't just for salespeople or negotiators. They are valuable tools that anyone can use in their daily interactions, whether in business, leadership, or personal relationships. 1. Reciprocity. The power of give and take. The principle of reciprocity is one of the most powerful tools in influence. It's the idea that when someone does something for us, we feel a psychological obligation to return the favor. This deep-rooted instinct can be used strategically to create positive relationships and gain cooperation. But here's the thing, strategic reciprocity isn't about giving something just to get something back. It's about creating genuine value for others. A small, thoughtful gesture can trigger a much bigger response. It's not about the size of the favor, but the thoughtfulness behind it. For example, let's say you're trying to build rapport with a colleague or client. Instead of immediately jumping into your pitch, offer them something small and valuable, perhaps a useful resource, advice, or even just a listening ear. This act of generosity will likely lead them to feel an unconscious need to reciprocate, which creates a sense of goodwill and openness. The key here is that the thoughtfulness of the gesture matters more than the monetary value. People are more inclined to return a favor when they feel it was genuinely made with their interests in mind, not just as a tactic to get something in return. 2. Social proof. The influence of others. Humans are social creatures, and when we're uncertain, we look to others for guidance. Social proof is the principle that people tend to follow the actions of others, especially in ambiguous situations. It's why testimonials and reviews are so powerful in marketing. If others are doing it, it must be the right thing to do. In strategic thinking, social proof can be used to create momentum and encourage others to follow your lead. For example, imagine you're presenting a new idea or strategy at work. Instead of simply telling people why it's a good idea, highlight the fact that other successful organizations or respected experts are already adopting a similar approach. This creates a sense of validation and safety, making others more likely to adopt the same mindset. Social proof works especially well when the people you're influencing are similar to your audience. When you can show that people who are in the same situation or share the same values have already embraced your idea, you're much more likely to gain support. 3. Commitment and consistency. The power of self-image. Once people commit to something, they're more likely to follow through, especially if that commitment aligns with their self-image. The principle of commitment and consistency is based on the idea that people have a deep need to appear consistent in their thoughts, words, and actions. When someone makes a commitment, even a small one, they're more likely to follow through with it to maintain consistency with their self-perception. This is why small initial commitments can lead to larger ones. In the world of sales or influence, this is often referred to as the foot-in-the-door technique. If you can get someone to agree to something small, they're much more likely to agree to something bigger later on. This isn't about manipulating people. It's about creating an environment where their own desire for consistency encourages them to make decisions that align with their earlier commitments. For example, let's say you're trying to get a colleague to take on a larger project. Start by getting them to commit to a smaller task related to the project. Once they've agreed to that, they'll feel more compelled to continue contributing as it aligns with their earlier commitment. 4. Framing. The art of presentation, how you present information, can have a massive impact on how it's received. Framing refers to the way information is presented, which can influence how people perceive it. Essentially, the same facts can lead to different decisions depending on how they are framed. For example, imagine you're selling a product and you present it like this. This car will save you $1,000 per year in fuel costs. Now imagine you present it this way. This car costs $15,000 more than a similar model over the life of the car. Same car, same facts, but the framing is entirely different. Framing works because people are naturally loss-averse. We're more motivated by the fear of losing something than by the potential of gaining something. So, in persuasive situations, loss framing, emphasizing what someone stands to lose, is often more effective than gain framing, emphasizing what they stand to gain. Understanding how to frame information, whether in marketing, negotiations, or conversations, allows you to guide people's decisions by presenting the information in a way that highlights the most compelling aspects. 5. Authority. Gaining trust through expertise. Authority is the principle that people are more likely to listen to and follow someone who is perceived as an expert in a particular area. This is why doctors, lawyers, and other professionals have such influence. Their expertise is trusted and respected. But authority doesn't just come from credentials. It also comes from demonstrated competence and trustworthiness. To leverage authority and influence, you don't need to simply claim expertise. You need to demonstrate it. This might involve sharing valuable insights, offering helpful advice, or providing accurate predictions. The more you can prove that you have the knowledge and competence to back up your claims, the more people will trust you and be influenced by your recommendations. For example, in a business setting, if you want to persuade a team to adopt a new strategy, don't just tell them you're an expert. Show them your experience through past successes, data-driven decisions, and clear logic. By demonstrating authority in a given context, you'll gain the respect and trust necessary to influence others. 6. Scarcity. The urgency of limited resources. Scarcity is a principle that plays on the basic human fear of losing out. When something is perceived as scarce or in limited supply, it becomes more desirable. This is why limited time offers or exclusive deals work so effectively in marketing and persuasion. In negotiations, you can use scarcity to create urgency and push others into making decisions faster. If you want someone to act quickly, emphasize the limited nature of the opportunity. You don't have to lie or manipulate. Simply highlighting the opportunity cost or the risk of missing out can motivate action. For example, in a job negotiation, you might tell a candidate, "We're offering this role to a few select candidates and we'll be making a decision soon." This small reference to scarcity can create a sense of urgency that encourages the candidate to act quickly and make a decision. The ethics of influence. It's important to note that influence should always be used ethically. The goal of influence isn't to manipulate or deceive, but to guide people toward decisions that are beneficial for both parties. The best influence strategies are those that create mutually beneficial outcomes, where both sides feel satisfied and respected. When used responsibly, the principles of influence and persuasion can help you create positive relationships, foster cooperation, and achieve your strategic objectives. By understanding the psychology of decision-making and using these principles with integrity, you can become a master of influence and a more effective strategist. If you're finding these influence strategies useful, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more powerful techniques that will elevate your decision-making and persuasive abilities. Chapter 12, Systems Thinking and Leverage Points. Imagine you're trying to solve a recurring problem in your business, something that seems to come up again and again, no matter how hard you try to fix it. You try to patch up one issue, only for another to crop up soon after. It feels like you're stuck in an endless cycle of putting out fires without ever addressing the underlying cause. What if I told you that the solution to this problem isn't in addressing isolated symptoms, but in understanding the entire system that's driving these issues? This is the power of systems thinking. At its core, systems thinking is about seeing the whole picture. It's about understanding how various components of a system, whether it's a business, a team, or even a personal goal, are interconnected, and how small changes in one area can have ripple effects throughout the entire system. But here's the catch: systems thinking is not just about understanding the connections. It's about identifying the leverage points, those key areas where small changes can have a disproportionately large impact. What is systems thinking? In traditional problem solving, we often treat problems as isolated events, separate from everything else. If a department is underperforming, we focus on improving that department alone. If a product is failing, we try to make tweaks to the product. But systems thinking tells us that problems are rarely isolated. They exist as part of a larger web of interconnected factors. For example, imagine you're running a restaurant and you're having issues with long wait times for customers. The obvious solution might be to hire more servers. But through systems thinking, you might realize that the real issue lies elsewhere, perhaps in inefficient kitchen processes, poor communication between the front and back of the house, or even outdated equipment. These underlying factors might be causing the delays, and simply hiring more servers would only provide a temporary fix. Systems thinking encourages you to step back and consider the entire ecosystem of causes and effects, rather than just focusing on one element. This broad perspective helps you identify root causes and find long-term solutions. The importance of feedback loops. A critical component of systems thinking is understanding feedback loops. A feedback loop occurs when an action produces a result, and that result influences future actions in the system. Feedback loops can be either positive, reinforcing, or negative, balancing. Positive feedback loops amplify change. For example, when a successful business gains customers, it gains more revenue, which allows it to invest in marketing and further improve its product, attracting even more customers. This creates an accelerating cycle of growth. Negative feedback loops counteract change. They act to stabilize the system. For example, when a company raises its prices too high, customer demand might decrease, which pushes the company to lower its prices again in order to maintain sales. Understanding these loops helps you recognize patterns within systems and how small interventions can tip the balance in your favor or stabilize a system that's out of control. Identifying leverage points in a system. A leverage point is a place in a system where a small change can have a large effect. Systems are complex, and in many cases, the most effective solution is not the one that tries to fix everything at once, but the one that targets the leverage points, the places where a little effort can lead to significant results. Take the example of a traffic jam. The traditional approach might be to add more lanes or build more roads. However, a leverage point might be improving traffic signals, changing traffic patterns, or encouraging carpooling. These relatively small changes can drastically improve the flow of traffic without the massive cost of building new infrastructure. In business, identifying leverage points can help you focus on the most critical actions that will move the needle. This could be adjusting your pricing strategy, improving your customer service, or streamlining operations in a specific department. The key is to find the point where a small shift leads to significant, often outsized, results. Types of leverage points. Donella Meadows, one of the foremost experts on systems thinking, identified a hierarchy of leverage points. These range from simple to more complex, depending on where they lie within the system. 1. Numerical adjustments. These are the least effective leverage points, often involving tweaking existing parameters, for example, adjusting budgets or quotas. While they can provide short-term fixes, they rarely lead to long-term change. 2. Changing the structure of the system. This could involve altering the way a company is organized, changing the roles and responsibilities of departments, or introducing new technology that shifts the structure of work. 3. Altering the rules. These leverage points involve changing the rules that govern how a system operates. This could be implementing new policies, modifying decision-making processes, or changing incentives. For example, changing a company's reward system from rewarding individual performance to rewarding team collaboration could fundamentally shift the company's culture. The company's culture. 4. Shifting the system's paradigm. The most powerful leverage point is to shift the paradigm, the underlying assumptions and beliefs that shape how a system operates. This is about changing the mindset that drives the system. For example, in the early days of the internet, the paradigm was about creating software that could be sold as products. Today, the paradigm has shifted to focus on services and subscriptions, leading to the rise of companies like Netflix and Spotify. Understanding where you are in the hierarchy of leverage points helps you identify the best places to intervene in the system for maximum effect. Applying systems thinking in business, let's consider an example in a business setting. Imagine you're the CEO of a growing startup and you're facing an issue with high employee turnover. At first glance, it might seem like the solution is to offer more competitive salaries or hire a better HR team. But through systems thinking, you begin to ask more in-depth questions. What are the root causes of employee turnover? How does company culture, leadership, and team dynamics influence this issue? Are there broader factors like market trends or employee expectations that we're overlooking? Through a systems thinking approach, you may identify that high turnover is not just a matter of compensation, but related to poor communication, lack of career development opportunities, or a mismatch between employee values and company values. By identifying these root causes, you can implement changes that address the system's underlying issues, rather than just treating the symptoms. You may also identify leverage points within your company's culture or HR policies that will have a much greater impact than simply offering higher salaries. Perhaps introducing mentorship programs, improving employee feedback loops, or aligning company values with employee goals could significantly reduce turnover with a relatively low investment of time and resources. The role of leverage in personal strategy systems thinking doesn't only apply to business, it's also a powerful tool for personal strategy. By understanding the systems in your life, your habits, relationships, career goals, and personal health, you can identify leverage points that will help you achieve your objectives more effectively. For example, imagine you're struggling to improve your fitness. Rather than trying to overhaul your entire routine, you could focus on a few leverage points that will have a big impact. Perhaps adjusting your diet or getting better sleep could provide the energy and motivation needed to exercise consistently. Or maybe joining a workout group provides the accountability and support you need to stick with it. The key is identifying the small changes that will yield the most significant improvements, instead of trying to make drastic, all-encompassing changes that might be harder to maintain. Mastering systems thinking and leverage points. Mastering systems thinking requires practice and patience. The first step is developing a holistic view of the system you're working with, whether it's a business, a personal goal, or a complex challenge. Look for patterns, feedback loops, and interconnections, and resist the urge to focus on isolated problems. Once you have a clear view of the system, identify the leverage points. Ask yourself, where can I make a small change that will lead to a significant improvement? Where can I adjust the structure or rules of the system to create lasting change? By mastering systems thinking and leverage points, you can become a more strategic thinker, capable of solving problems with precision and foresight. You'll learn to see beyond the surface and understand the deeper dynamics at play, giving you a powerful advantage in decision-making. If you're finding these insights on systems thinking valuable, make sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more strategies on mastering complexity and achieving strategic success. Chapter 13, Strategic Communication and Negotiation. In the world of strategic thinking, communication and negotiation are the pillars that hold everything together. The ability to communicate your ideas clearly, persuade others, and negotiate effectively can be the difference between success and failure. In fact, strategic thinking isn't just about having the right answers. It's about knowing how to communicate those answers to the right people in the right way. Effective communication and negotiation are about much more than just transmitting information. They involve understanding the emotions, motivations, and perspectives of your audience and crafting messages that resonate with them on a deeper level. Whether you're leading a team, negotiating a business deal, or simply trying to get a point across, mastering the art of communication and negotiation can amplify your influence and impact. In this chapter, we'll explore strategic communication, the ability to convey ideas in ways that engage and persuade, and negotiation, the art of reaching mutually beneficial agreements. Together, these skills form the foundation of effective strategic action. The foundation of strategic communication, effective communication, is more than just clear speech or writing. It's about understanding your audience, tailoring your message to their needs, and framing your ideas in ways that align with their values and emotions. Successful communicators know that how they present information is just as important as what they're presenting. The first step in strategic communication is audience analysis. Before you craft your message, you need to understand who you're communicating with. What are their interests, needs, and concerns? What kind of language do they respond to? What emotional triggers can you tap into? For instance, imagine you're pitching a new idea to a group of executives. If you focus solely on the technical details of your proposal, you might lose their interest. Instead, frame your pitch in terms of how it aligns with their goals, whether that's increasing revenue, improving efficiency, or gaining a competitive edge. By speaking directly to their interests, you're more likely to get their attention and buy-in. Understanding your audience is also key to anticipating their objections and preparing responses in advance. This proactive approach to communication ensures that you're not just reacting to the conversation, but guiding it in a direction that supports your goals. The power of message framing is one of the most powerful tools in strategic communication. It refers to the way information is presented and how this presentation influences perception. The same facts can lead to very different decisions depending on how they are framed. For example, let's say you're trying to convince your team to adopt a new strategy. If you frame the change as a challenge, you might evoke resistance and fear. But if you frame it as an opportunity for growth and success, you're much more likely to inspire excitement and buy-in. Framing can also be used to highlight the most important aspects of your message. The primacy effect tells us that information presented first has the greatest influence on overall impressions. Conversely, the recency effect shows that the last piece of information people hear will stick with them the most. Understanding these effects helps you structure your message for maximum impact. For example, when delivering a presentation, you might begin with a bold statement that captures attention, followed by key supporting arguments, and end with a call to action that reinforces your main point. Persuasion through emotion. At the heart of communication is emotion. People make decisions based not only on logic, but also on how they feel. Emotion plays a significant role in persuasion, often guiding decisions before logic even enters the picture. This is why emotional intelligence, covered earlier in the book, is such a critical skill for communicators. The first step in persuasive communication is identifying the emotional state of your audience. Are they excited, anxious, uncertain, or frustrated? Once you understand their emotional state, you can tailor your message to resonate with their feelings and needs. If they're anxious, you might focus on providing reassurance. If they're excited, you can amplify their enthusiasm with new ideas. A key concept in persuasive communication is narrative storytelling. Humans are naturally wired to respond to stories because they engage our emotions and imaginations. When you present your ideas through stories, you connect with your audience on a deeper, more personal level. For example, imagine you're trying to convince a potential investor to fund your startup. Instead of simply presenting the numbers, you could tell the story of how your company came to be, the challenges you overcame, and the impact your product is having on real customers. This approach creates an emotional connection and helps the investor envision their role in your success. Negotiation. The art of creating win-win solutions. Negotiation is another essential skill for strategic thinkers. It's the process of reaching an agreement between two or more parties with different needs, priorities, or interests. While negotiation can sometimes seem like a zero-sum game, where one side's gain is another side's loss, the most successful negotiations are those where both parties walk away feeling like they've won. At the core of successful negotiation is the ability to focus on interests, not just positions. A position is what someone says they want, but an interest is why they want it. Often, by understanding the interests of both parties, you can find creative solutions that meet everyone's needs. For example, let's say you're negotiating a salary increase with your employer. Instead of focusing solely on the salary number, the position, focus on what you really want, perhaps more recognition, better work-life balance, or opportunities for growth. By understanding the underlying interests, you can negotiate for a better overall package that satisfies both your needs and your employer's. This approach to negotiation is known as principled negotiation, and it's based on the idea that negotiations are not about winning or losing, but about finding solutions that satisfy the needs of all parties involved. The negotiation process, preparation and strategy. Effective negotiation doesn't happen by chance. It requires preparation and strategy. Before entering any negotiation, you need to know your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. In other words, what your options are if the negotiation doesn't go as planned. Knowing your BATNA gives you leverage and ensures that you don't settle for a bad deal out of desperation. Another critical aspect of negotiation is anchoring. This refers to the tendency for the first number or piece of information presented in a negotiation to have a disproportionate influence on the final agreement. If you're negotiating the price of a product or service, presenting the initial offer can set the tone for the entire conversation. Be strategic in what you present first and ensure that it aligns with your goals. Finally, one of the most powerful techniques in negotiation is active listening. Too often, people listen just enough to formulate their rebuttal, rather than truly understanding the other party's position. By engaging in active listening, asking questions, reflecting back what you hear, and showing empathy, you create an atmosphere of respect and collaboration. This not only builds rapport, but also opens up the possibility for more creative solutions. Using strategic communication in negotiation. Effective negotiators use strategic communication to guide the conversation and influence the outcome. By framing the discussion, managing emotions, and presenting solutions in a way that resonates with both parties' interests, you can turn a simple negotiation into a win-win situation. For example, imagine you're negotiating with a partner over the terms of a contract. Instead of focusing on what you want, ask open-ended questions to understand their concerns and needs. This helps you find common ground, where both parties feel heard and valued. You can then frame your proposals in a way that addresses their needs while still achieving your goals. If you're gaining valuable insights into strategic communication and negotiation, make sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more powerful strategies that will elevate your influence and decision-making abilities. Chapter 14, Long-Term Vision and Strategic Planning. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean, gazing at the horizon. The waters stretch endlessly in front of you, with no clear path visible. To some, this might feel overwhelming, even paralyzing. But to a strategic thinker, this horizon represents potential, the endless opportunities that lie ahead. It's the long-term vision that guides every step, every decision, and every move. In the fast-paced world we live in, it's easy to get caught up in the short-term hustle, reacting to immediate problems, chasing the next deadline, and constantly firefighting. But without a long-term vision, it's like navigating the vast ocean without a compass. You might move, but you won't reach your desired destination. Strategic planning helps you turn that vision into reality. It provides the framework and steps to achieve long-term goals, even when the journey is uncertain. It's about more than just predicting the future. It's about preparing for it and positioning yourself to succeed, no matter what the future holds. The power of long-term vision. A long-term vision isn't just a wish or a vague idea of success. It's a clear and compelling picture of where you want to be in the future. Whether it's growing a business, achieving personal goals, or creating positive change in the world, your vision acts as the guiding star that keeps you on track. Without a long-term vision, you're like a ship without a destination. No matter how fast you go, you won't ever truly know if you're on the right path. But creating a meaningful vision requires introspection. You need to answer critical questions. What do you truly care about? What impact do you want to leave? What legacy do you want to create? Your vision should be aligned with your core values, aspirations, and long-term desires. It must be inspiring enough to pull you forward, even in the face of obstacles. The more vivid and specific you make your vision, the clearer the path will be, even if that path isn't immediately visible. Vision and strategic flexibility. A key component of strategic thinking is flexibility. While your long-term vision provides direction, it's crucial to stay adaptable in how you achieve that vision. In the world of strategy, no plan ever survives first contact with reality. Markets change, new technologies emerge, and unforeseen events happen. This is why strategic flexibility is essential. Having a vision doesn't mean rigidly sticking to one path. Instead, it means being open to recalibrating your approach when necessary. Your vision should provide the broad direction you need, but the specific steps you take to get there may shift over time. Scenario planning, as discussed earlier, is a powerful tool to help you maintain strategic flexibility. By envisioning multiple possible futures and developing strategies that work across different scenarios, you can stay agile and responsive to change. Strategic planning, turning vision into action. A strategic plan is your roadmap for turning your long-term vision into reality. Without a plan, a vision remains a dream. But with a plan, you can create concrete actions that move you toward your goals, step by step. The first step in creating a strategic plan is identifying long-term objectives. These are the big, overarching goals that you want to achieve within a set period, usually 3, 5, or even 10 years. These objectives should be specific, measurable, and realistic. Once you've established your objectives, break them down into shorter-term goals that can be tackled within months or years. These shorter-term goals should build toward your long-term objectives and provide clear milestones for progress. The 80/20 rule, focusing on what matters most when you're planning strategically. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all the tasks and responsibilities in front of you, but not all tasks are created equal. Some activities will contribute significantly to your success, while others will have little to no impact. This is where the 80/20 rule, or the Pareto principle, comes in. The 80/20 rule states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. In other words, a small number of activities, decisions, or actions will drive most of your success. The challenge is to identify and focus on these high-leverage activities. For example, in a business context, you might find that a small subset of customers accounts for the majority of your revenue, or that a few key partnerships lead to the most significant growth opportunities. Focusing on these high-leverage areas allows you to maximize your impact without spreading yourself too thin. Resource allocation. Investing where it matters most. One of the core aspects of strategic planning is resource allocation, deciding where to direct your time, money, energy, and attention. Every decision you make about where to focus resources will have long-term implications for your success. When creating your plan, think about the return on investment, ROI, for each potential opportunity. Which initiatives will yield the highest return with the least amount of effort? Which areas need more investment to reach their full potential? Strategic thinkers are constantly optimizing their resources to ensure the highest impact. Resource allocation isn't just about financial investment. It also involves investing in people, skills, and tools. For example, if you're aiming for long-term growth, Investing in employee training and development may have a higher ROI than simply expanding your product line. Staying committed to your vision, creating a long-term vision, and a strategic plan is just the beginning. The real challenge lies in staying committed to that vision, especially when the going gets tough. The road to success is rarely smooth. There will be setbacks, obstacles, and moments of doubt. But the power of having a clear vision is that it serves as your anchor when challenges arise. When you face difficulties, revisit your vision and remind yourself why you started. A strong vision helps you push through the inevitable frustrations and stay focused on what truly matters. It's also essential to regularly review and update your strategic plan. As you gain more experience and as external conditions change, your plan may need to be adjusted. Strategic thinkers view their plans as living documents, constantly evolving to reflect new insights, opportunities, and challenges. The role of leadership in strategic planning. Finally, no strategic plan can succeed without leadership. A strong leader provides the vision, motivation, and guidance necessary to execute the plan. Effective leadership means inspiring others to get behind the plan, aligning their efforts with the long-term vision, and fostering a culture of commitment and excellence. A great leader doesn't just dictate the strategy. They help others understand the vision, buy into the goals, and play their part in making the plan a reality. Leadership isn't about controlling every detail. It's about empowering others to contribute their talents toward achieving the collective goal. If you're enjoying these insights on long-term vision and strategic planning, be sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more powerful techniques that will help you take control of your future. Chapter 15, Implementation and Mastery. All the planning, vision, and strategy in the world won't matter unless you can implement them effectively. Strategy isn't just about thinking, it's about doing. It's about taking your insights, your ideas, and your plans and translating them into actionable steps that bring you closer to your goals. In the world of strategic thinking, the gap between knowledge and execution is where many people fail. They may have a great plan, but without the ability to implement it, their ideas never come to life. This chapter is all about closing that gap, taking your strategic thinking to the next level, and turning it into mastery. Strategic thinking is a dynamic process that requires continuous effort, improvement, and refinement. It's not enough to have the right mindset. You must also develop the ability to execute your plans and adjust your strategies as you go. This chapter will guide you through the essential elements of implementation, the common obstacles that arise, and how to overcome them to achieve mastery in strategic thinking. The role of implementation in strategic thinking. Implementing a strategy is where the rubber meets the road. Strategic thinking provides you with the framework and the tools to understand the environment, make informed decisions, and plan for the future. Implementation is the process of turning that understanding into action. No matter how brilliant your strategy is, it means nothing if it isn't executed properly. In fact, execution often accounts for a larger part of success than the strategy itself. Think about it, countless companies and individuals have had great ideas, but failed because they didn't know how to bring them to life. In implementation, you must take the broad goals you've set and break them down into specific, actionable steps. Each of these steps should be tied to measurable outcomes so that you can track progress and make adjustments as needed. Overcoming common implementation obstacles. Implementing a strategy is rarely a smooth ride. Even the best laid plans will encounter obstacles, but the difference between those who succeed and those who fail lies in their ability to overcome these challenges and stay the course. Some common implementation obstacles include perfectionism. Many people struggle with the urge to make everything perfect before taking action. While it's important to aim for high standards, waiting for the perfect moment or perfect conditions can lead to inaction. The key is to start with good enough and adjust as you go. Perfectionism leads to analysis paralysis, where you spend more time thinking than doing. Emotional reactivity. Strategic thinking requires the ability to stay calm and analytical, especially in high-pressure situations. When emotions run high, it's easy to make impulsive decisions or react without fully thinking through the consequences. Mastering emotional regulation is essential for staying on track during implementation. When you encounter emotional triggers, take a step back, breathe, and refocus on the bigger picture. Social pressure. Another barrier to implementation is the influence of others. When people around you don't understand your strategy or question your decisions, it can be tempting to abandon your plan in favor of their opinions. However, staying true to your strategy is crucial for long-term success. Build resilience against social pressure by clearly communicating your vision and demonstrating confidence in your choices. Lack of focus. In the process of implementation, it's easy to become distracted by short-term challenges or emergent issues that don't align with your long-term goals. Staying focused on your strategic objectives is essential. Use the 80/20 rule to ensure you're prioritizing the highest leverage activities and not getting bogged down in less impactful tasks. Deliberate practice. The key to mastery in strategic thinking, like any other skill, is built through deliberate practice. Deliberate practice involves consciously and consistently applying the principles of strategic thinking in real-world situations, reflecting on your decisions, and learning from both successes and failures. To develop mastery, you must 1. Start with low-risk decisions. Begin practicing strategic thinking in situations where the stakes are not too high. This allows you to experiment with different approaches, make mistakes, and learn from them without serious consequences. For example, try applying your strategic thinking to smaller personal or professional decisions before tackling high-stakes negotiations or complex business strategies. 2. Keep a decision journal. Writing down your decisions, the reasoning behind them, and the outcomes can help you identify patterns in your thinking and improve your approach over time. In your journal, reflect on the effectiveness of your decisions, what worked well, and what you would do differently next time. 3. Analyze your mistakes. One of the best ways to learn is through failure. When things don't go as planned, resist the temptation to blame external factors or make excuses. Instead, take responsibility for your part and identify the areas where your strategy fell short. Use this insight to refine your approach for future decisions. 4. Seek feedback. Surround yourself with people who can provide honest feedback on your decisions and strategies. This could be mentors, colleagues, or trusted advisors. The more you receive constructive criticism, the better equipped you will be to improve your strategic thinking and execution. Creating an environment for success. The environment around you plays a significant role in how successfully you implement your strategy. A supportive environment includes the right tools, resources, and people who can help you execute your plan. Here's how to create an environment conducive to strategic thinking and implementation. Surround yourself with strategic thinkers. Your peers and team members should share your commitment to strategic thinking. Build a network of people who support your goals, challenge your assumptions, and push you to improve. A team of diverse, strategic thinkers can help you brainstorm, test ideas, and hold each other accountable. Develop systems and processes. In order to effectively implement a strategy, you need systems that make the process more efficient. These could be project management tools, decision-making frameworks, or feedback loops that ensure your progress is tracked and that you remain on course. Systems help turn abstract ideas into concrete actions, making it easier to execute your strategy. Establish accountability structures. Without accountability, even the best strategies can fall apart. Set clear expectations for yourself and others, and establish regular check-ins to track progress. Whether it's a weekly meeting with your team, monthly performance reviews, or personal milestones, accountability ensures that you stay focused and motivated. Measuring progress and adjusting your plan's strategic thinking doesn't end with implementation. Once you start taking action, you need to constantly monitor progress and adjust your plan as needed. Things won't always go according to plan, and that's okay. The The key is to measure the effectiveness of your decisions and be flexible enough to make changes. Regularly ask yourself, what's working? What parts of your strategy are producing results? Focus your energy on these areas to build momentum. What's not working? Identify areas where you're falling short. Is it due to a poor decision, a lack of resources, or something else? Make adjustments to either the strategy or the execution. What can you learn? Each step of the journey provides valuable lessons. By constantly reflecting on your decisions, you improve your strategic thinking and increase your chances of success in future endeavors. The continuous cycle of strategic thinking is not a one-time activity. It's a continuous process. As you implement your strategies, you'll gain new insights, refine your approaches, and adjust your plans accordingly. The goal is to develop a growth mindset where you're always learning and improving. To master strategic thinking, you must apply what you've learned from past experiences, continuously practice and refine your skills. Stay committed to your long-term vision while being flexible in how you achieve it. Mastery in strategic thinking isn't about being perfect. It's about consistently improving, learning from mistakes, and becoming more effective in how you approach challenges and opportunities. If you're enjoying the process of mastering strategic thinking and implementation, don't forget to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more techniques that will help you execute your plans with confidence and consistency. Vision and strategic flexibility. A key component of strategic thinking is flexibility. While your long-term vision provides direction, it's crucial to stay adaptable in how you achieve that vision. In the world of strategy, no plan ever survives first contact with reality. Markets change, new technologies emerge, and unforeseen events happen. This is why strategic flexibility is essential. Having a vision doesn't mean rigidly sticking to one path. Instead, it means being open to recalibrating your approach when necessary. Your vision should provide the broad direction you need, but the specific steps you take to get there may shift over time. Scenario planning, as discussed earlier, is a powerful tool to help you maintain strategic flexibility. By envisioning multiple possible futures and developing strategies that work across different scenarios, you can stay agile and responsive to change. Strategic planning, turning vision into action. A strategic plan is your roadmap for turning your long-term vision into reality. Without a plan, a vision remains a dream. But with a plan, you can create concrete actions that move you toward your goals, step by step. The first step in creating a strategic plan is identifying long-term objectives. These are the big, overarching goals that you want to achieve within a set period, usually 3, 5, or even 10 years. These objectives should be specific, measurable, and realistic. Once you've established your objectives, break them down into shorter-term goals that can be tackled within months or years. These shorter-term goals should build toward your long-term objectives and provide clear milestones for progress. The 80/20 rule, focusing on what matters most when you're planning strategically. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all the tasks and responsibilities in front of you, but not all tasks are created equal. Some activities will contribute significantly to your success, while others will have little to no impact. This is where the 80/20 rule, or the Pareto principle, comes in. The 80/20 rule states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. In other words, a small number of activities, decisions, or actions will drive most of your success. The challenge is to identify and focus on these high-leverage activities. For example, in a business context, you might find that a small subset of customers accounts for the majority of your revenue, or that a few key partnerships lead to the most significant growth opportunities. Focusing on these high-leverage areas allows you to maximize your impact without spreading yourself too thin. Resource allocation. Investing where it matters most. One of the core aspects of strategic planning is resource allocation, deciding where to direct your time, money, energy, and attention. Every decision you make about where to focus resources will have long-term implications for your success. When creating your plan, think about the return on investment, ROI, for each potential opportunity. Which initiatives will yield the highest return with the least amount of effort? Which areas need more investment to reach their full potential? Strategic thinkers are constantly optimizing their resources to ensure the highest impact. Resource allocation isn't just about financial investment. It also involves investing in people, skills, and tools. For example, if you're aiming for long-term growth, investing in employee training and development may have a higher ROI than simply expanding your product line. Staying committed to your vision, creating a long-term vision, and a strategic plan is just the beginning. The real challenge lies in staying committed to that vision, especially when the going gets tough. The road to success is rarely smooth. There will be setbacks, obstacles, and moments of doubt. But the power of having a clear vision is that it serves as your anchor when challenges arise. When you face difficulties, revisit your vision and remind yourself why you started. A strong vision helps you push through the inevitable frustrations and stay focused on what truly matters. It's also essential to regularly review and update your strategic plan. As you gain more experience and as external conditions change, your plan may need to be adjusted. Strategic thinkers view their plans as living documents, constantly evolving to reflect new insights, opportunities, and challenges. The role of leadership in strategic planning. Finally, no strategic plan can succeed without leadership. A strong leader provides the vision, motivation, and guidance necessary to execute the plan. Effective leadership means inspiring others to get behind the plan, aligning their efforts with the long-term vision, and fostering a culture of commitment and excellence. A great leader doesn't just dictate the strategy. They help others understand the vision, buy into the goals, and play their part in making the plan a reality. Leadership isn't about controlling every detail. It's about empowering others to contribute their talents toward achieving the collective goal. If you're enjoying these insights on long-term vision and strategic planning, be sure to subscribe to Blue Wave Audiobook for more powerful techniques that will help you take control of your future. Chapter 15, Implementation and Mastery. All the planning, vision, and strategy in the world won't matter unless you can implement them effectively. Strategy isn't just about thinking, it's about doing. It's about taking your insights, your ideas, and your plans and translating them into actionable steps that bring you closer to your goals. In the world of strategic thinking, the gap between knowledge and execution is where many people fail. They may have a great plan, but without the ability to implement it, their ideas never come to life. This chapter is all about closing that gap, taking your strategic thinking to the next level, and turning it into mastery. Strategic thinking is a dynamic process that requires continuous effort, improvement, and refinement. It's not enough to have the right mindset. You must also develop the ability to execute your plans and adjust your strategies as you go. This chapter will guide you through the essential elements of implementation, the common obstacles that arise, and how to overcome them to achieve mastery in strategic thinking. The role of implementation in strategic thinking. Implementing a strategy is where the rubber meets the road. Strategic thinking provides you with the framework and the tools to understand the environment, make informed decisions, and plan for the future. Implementation is the process of turning that understanding into action. No matter how brilliant your strategy is, it means nothing if it isn't executed properly. In fact, execution often accounts for a larger part of success than the strategy itself. Think about it, countless companies and individuals have had great ideas, but failed because they didn't know how to bring them to life. In implementation, you must take the broad goals you've set and break them down into specific, actionable steps. Each of these steps should be tied to measurable outcomes so that you can track progress and make adjustments as needed. Overcoming common implementation obstacles. Implementing a strategy is rarely a smooth ride. Even the best-laid plans will encounter obstacles, but the difference between those who succeed and those who fail lies in their ability to overcome these challenges and stay the course. Some common implementation obstacles include perfectionism. Many people struggle with the urge to make everything perfect before taking action. While it's important to aim for high standards, waiting for the perfect moment or perfect conditions can lead to inaction. The key is to start with good enough and adjust as you go. Perfectionism leads to analysis paralysis, where you spend more time thinking than doing. Emotional reactivity. Strategic thinking requires the ability to stay calm and analytical, especially in high-pressure situations. When emotions run high, it's easy to make impulsive decisions or react without fully thinking through the consequences. Mastering emotional regulation is essential for staying on track during implementation. When you encounter emotional triggers, take a step back, breathe, and refocus on the bigger picture. Social pressure. Another barrier to implementation is the influence of others. When people around you don't understand your strategy or question your decisions, it can be tempting to abandon your plan in favor of their opinions. However, staying true to your strategy is crucial for long-term success. Build resilience against social pressure by clearly communicating your vision and demonstrating confidence in your choices. Lack of focus. In the process of implementation, it's easy to become distracted by short-term challenges or emergent issues that don't align with your long-term goals. Staying focused on your strategic objectives is essential. Use the 80/20 rule to ensure you're prioritizing the highest leverage activities and not getting bogged down in less impactful tasks. Deliberate practice. The key to mastery in strategic thinking, like any other skill, is built through deliberate practice. Deliberate practice involves consciously and consistently applying the principles of strategic thinking in real-world situations, reflecting on your decisions, and learning from both successes and failures. To develop mastery, you must 1. Start with low-risk decisions. Begin practicing strategic thinking in situations where the stakes are not too high. This allows you to experiment with different approaches, make mistakes, and learn from them without serious consequences. For example, try applying your strategic thinking to smaller personal or professional decisions before tackling high-stakes negotiations or complex business strategies. 2. Keep a decision journal. Writing down your decisions, the reasoning behind them, and the outcomes can help you identify patterns in your thinking and improve your approach over time. In your journal, reflect on the effectiveness of your decisions, what worked well, and what you would do differently next time. 3. Analyze your mistakes. One of the best ways to learn is through failure. When things don't go as planned, resist the temptation to blame